Okay, we are now recording. So I will start by sharing my screen as always. Okay, I'll share the screen and we'll look at what you did last week. We'll most importantly look at what you need to do this week, but we'll also talk about next week because next week is the last lesson. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, type them into the chat bar or just ask them, okay? And we'll answer them as we go. So here's the week 6 instructions folder, and this is the instructions page. I also have the assessment activity you'll need to do this week, but let's have a look at this first, okay? So, sorry, let's just go back here. So this week, you will look at the final part of the story message, okay, which is the conclusion. So every story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so for our presentations, we have the introduction, we have the body, and we have the conclusion. So the idea is today, or this week, start by looking at the assessment activity. Do it with your textbook in your hands. In fact, do it in the textbook first, then come back and do the assessment activity with the textbook open. We will look at what you have to do this week to finish your presentations. Okay, this is the presentations are due next Wednesday. Okay, they're due by 9 o'clock next Wednesday, and they'll be on Flipgrid. And we'll go through all of what you need to do before then. So here we are, looking at the quarter structure. We are here, the second last lesson. Next week will be the last. So as I said, this week you will finish your conclusion, you will practice your presentation, and then you record your presentation on Flipgrid. There will be a recording of today's session placed here once we're finished, of course. So if anybody needs to come back and review what I talk about today, you can review it. And for those of you who haven't joined today's session, you can come and watch the recording. So let's start by looking at the conclusion, all right? The conclusion is, well, obviously it comes at the end of the presentation. And the conclusion is important because it's the very last thing that your audience will hear you say. Now, just like when you are listening to a teacher give a lecture or a class, generally you are listening the hardest at the beginning of the class and at the end of the class. At the beginning, because you want to know what the class is about. You want to know what the teacher's going to tell you. And then at the end, because you want to find out if there's anything you need to do. Okay, so what homework do you have to do, or what was the important idea from the class? And generally, your mind kind of drifts off, comes back into focus and drifts away during the middle of a lesson. Okay, that's just normal. A presentation is exactly the same. An audience will listen to a presenter very hard at the beginning of the presentation. They want to know what the presentation is about. And then during the presentation, they will kind of focus in and drift away and focus in and drift away. They will listen to the body of the presentation. But then when the presenter gets to the conclusion, they will usually focus harder. And the thing is that when your presentation is finished, as your audience leaves the presentation or as you leave your classroom, you tend to remember the last thing that was said more than any other part of the presentation or part of your lesson. So that's why the conclusion is important. It's the last thing that you get to tell your audience, and it's probably the main thing that they will remember. So you have to give them the most important ideas. Okay, and we'll have a look at how to do that. So go to when you begin this week's class, start by coming here and doing these questions. Okay, I'm going to show you the preview, but remember, do it with the textbook open. So this is based on pages 87 to 92 in the textbook. And the idea is that the questions that you answer will guide you through the important ideas of the conclusion. Now, there's no time limit for doing it, so do it in the textbook first, and when you're ready, come back and start this activity. But you can only do this once, all right? Once you have submitted your answers, then you will see the correct answers. All right, so let's have a look. There are 8 questions for you to do, all right? Each question, it tells you where the answers are. So this is on page 87. Now, first of all, what 2 things does the conclusion... Oh, there's a spelling mistake for you. The conclusion, okay? That should be the conclusion, do. So choose 2 of these answers, okay? There's 5 possible answers. You need to choose 2. If you read through the information on page 87, these should be easy. Next question. Fill in the missing blank. Again, reading page 87, complete the sentence. The conclusion is your something to tell your audience what you want them to remember. Okay? Once you read through page 87, you'll be able to answer this. And the point is that the questions are designed to guide you to the important ideas of the conclusion. Okay, some of them I've already given you the answer, in fact, for some of these. True or false? The conclusion summarizes the presentation by repeating key points or examples from the body of the presentation. Again, once you've read through page 87, you'll be able to answer this. This one looks at an entire presentation, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion of a presentation. Now, when you are giving your presentation, in the introduction, you're going to talk about what you will be talking about. Okay, you're previewing the presentation. So all the verbs that you use are in the future tense. Okay, today I'm going to, today I will, today you will hear about. So all of the verbs are future tense verbs. Okay, so when you hear future tense verbs, it tells you it's part of the introduction. Now, when you're actually talking about the idea, so in the body of the presentation, which is the longest part of the presentation, and you're actually giving the information to the audience, you're giving it to them in the present. Okay? This is. So the verbs are all present tense verbs. So when you hear the present tense verbs, you know it's part of the body. And then in the conclusion, you are reminding the audience about what you have told them. Okay? You're talking about what you have already talked about. And so the verbs are in the past tense. So when you hear past tense verbs like today I told you about, it's the conclusion. So what you need to do with all of these examples, okay, these phrases have all been taken from different parts of a presentation. Read through the phrase and then decide, is it part of an introduction, is it part of the body, or is it part of the conclusion? And just drag them out and drop them in, okay? So do that for these ideas. I think there's 10. Again, a lot of the explanation for this is on page 88. Now, in question 5, you are given the introduction and body of a presentation, given by Mr. Nice Wrench, and he's going to tell you how to change a tire on a car. Okay, so there are 15 parts of the presentation. Now, 5 of them have been given to you. All right, so part 1, this one here, the beginning, 5, 6, 13, and 15 have all been given to you. You need to decide where the other parts of the presentation should go. Okay, so each of those has got a letter, A, B, C, right through to J. All right, so drag these into the correct part of your speech. Just pick them up and drag them. Now, I suggest you do this in the textbook first. Okay, do it in the textbook first, and then it will be much easier to do it online. Okay, just put number the letters in the order that you think that they should be in. That will help you. Remember, once you've finished, you'll be able to see the correct answers. Okay, so that's question 5. Question 6 follows on from question 5. Like I said, question 5 is a presentation which has an introduction and a body, but it has no conclusion. All right, so in this case, you need to decide which parts of these should be in the conclusion. Okay, so what are the 3 main points and what are the 3 main focus points? What should the audience remember about the presentation? So choose the correct phrases from the bottom of the page. Just again, drop and drag. Okay. All right, so that's question 6. Question 7. These are practice for the conclusion. Now, if we were in class, I would put you into pairs, and one person would be doing one and the other person would be doing the other one. You would actually give a presentation on your conclusion, but we can't do that. So the best I can do is to get you to identify what the focus points for each of those presentations should be. Now, the first one is looking at the e-phone. This is on page 89. Okay, there are 4 main ideas. The first one has been done for you. All right, so 3 products in 1. Focus point. Remember, you are always connected with an e-phone. Now you need to do the focus points for 2, 3, and 4. And choose one of these, okay? Which 3 of these are the focus points? You can read through the answers on page 89. Okay, you have a look at the whole speech on page 89, it will give you the answers. And question 8 is exactly the same, but this time you're looking at the e-guitar. Again, there are 3 focus points: easy to play, flexible sound, style. Okay, those are the main ideas. You need to focus points for each of those should be. The last one has been given to you. Guarantee. Remember, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Okay? So just choose the 3 that you think are the focus points for these 3 main ideas. And that's it. You can review your answers and then you will see which answers are correct and which ones are incorrect. Okay, so do this first. This will guide you through what the essential parts of a presentation, of a conclusion, are. Now, once you've done that, oops, we'll just wait for that to get out of the way. Once you've done that, come back here and you need to then work on your presentations. Now, this is the final part of your presentation. All right. Like I said, the presentation is due next Wednesday. And it's you have to record your presentation onto Flipgrid. Now, to do that this week, what you need to do first of all is rewrite your presentation to include an introduction and a conclusion. You should have already finished the body. Okay, you should have done that last week. And you may have already finished the introduction. You remember 2 weeks ago when I handed out everything, I said that you can do your conclusion, but you probably need to rewrite it. So today, you go back, have a look at what you've written, and then make changes based on what you've learned today. With the introduction, make sure you have a title slide. Okay, the title slide should have the what on it. It should have the title of your presentation. You should have another slide which has an overview on it, and the overview should be your main 3 points. So you need to practice the greeting, the what, the why, and the overview. And you should have a transition going from between the overview and your first main point. Okay, if you haven't got a transition, write that in. You should have done that last week. Now go back and have a look at your conclusion slide. You should have a conclusion slide. Every presentation must have a conclusion. A presentation without a conclusion is like a story without an ending. It leaves your readers or your audience frustrated, not really knowing what happened. Okay? So have a final conclusion slide that summarizes your main ideas. Make sure you provide your final thoughts and the focus points that they should remember from your presentation. Okay? So all the things that hopefully you just learned. You will probably need to alter your final slides, okay, to reflect the final thoughts and focus points. Now, 2 key things. Your presentation is not very long. It's 3 to 4 minutes. So don't spend too much time doing your introduction and your conclusion. Okay, your introduction should really be 30 to 40 seconds. And I would say the conclusion probably 20 to 30 seconds. I've said 30 to 40 here, but you could make it even quicker. Now, you've finished writing everything. You've finished all of your slides. Now you need to practice. That's what you should be doing this week, okay? Concentrating on on practicing. So, first of all, read through, okay? Practice giving the presentation, and when there are words that you are struggling with, okay, practice those words, identify them, highlight them, and then practice them. Remember, in quarter 1, I gave you a link to a online dictionary which you could find the word, and then you could practice the word, okay? Practice saying the word. Do that again with this presentation. Timing, like I said, you only have 3 to 4 minutes. So you need to practice to make sure that you can give your presentation within 4 minutes. Now, if it goes over 4 minutes, you have a little bit of room. But just a quick warning, the maximum length that you can talk or that you can record your presentation for is 5 minutes. That's how much time has been set up in the Flipgrid. Okay, the Flipgrid, you have a maximum of 5 minutes. If you go over that time limit, it will simply cut off and you need to do it again. So that's why practice is really important. Practice giving your presentation and try to fit it into within 4 minutes. Finally, do a spell check, okay? On your PowerPoint slides, go to Tools, click on Spell Check, and just make sure that there are no spelling errors. I've actually seen the title slide with spelling errors. It sets a really, it's a really bad way to start your presentation by actually having a spelling mistake in the title, okay? You want to make sure that you're as error-free as possible. And this is just a simple tip. You should do this with anything Microsoft. You do it with your PowerPoint presentations. You should do it with any essay that you ever type up, okay, in English, and even with Excel spreadsheets. Anything that you are going to show to somebody else, if you can do a spell check, do it. Okay, the final thing that you do, make sure there are no spelling errors before you record. All right, now once you've done that, record your presentation. All right, You record your presentation using Flipgrid, and I'm just going to go down to the Flipgrid section. Just a quick reminder, I've put all of the outlines of each presentation choice in here to help you. But remember, last week I was saying you don't need to include all of the information. You decide what's important and you include that. Okay, you need to have 2 to 3 main ideas. Okay, so all the information is there. Now, you have practiced your presentation. Now you need to record it. Here is the link to the Flipgrid to do it. So you simply click on this. You'll be asked to put in your student number here and then go. And then it's the same as before, okay? No changes. Just go in, record your presentation. Remember, there is a maximum of 5 minutes. Try to do it in 4 minutes max. Give yourself some time. All right. So that is it for this week. Okay, that's what you need to do this week. Do the conclusion assessment on Schoology. Write up your conclusion, make your conclusion slide, practice your whole presentation, and then record it on Flipgrid. Remember, it needs to be done by Wednesday next week. Okay, so you have 1 week to do this. Now, here's the thing. Next week, all right, you need to give feedback to each other. I'm just going to show you what you have to do next week. Okay, it's in the week 7 folder, which I haven't published yet, but we'll have a look at anyway for a very important reason. The instructions are in here, but essentially what you have to do is go and give feedback on 3 other presentations. All right? Now, if you finish your presentation early, let's say you finish your presentation by Sunday, and then there are other people who have also finished their presentation by Sunday, then you can go and give feedback on those presentations. All right? You need to give feedback on 3 other presentations. But what we don't want is everybody giving feedback on the same 3. So try to give feedback to people who haven't already got feedback. You have until Friday the 15th to give feedback. So if you don't finish your presentation until the deadline, then that's fine. But that means that you need to give feedback before Friday. All right? So if you get your presentation done quickly, you can give feedback early. If you don't, then the deadline for giving feedback is Friday the 15th of August. That's during OBON, so you may want to get it done earlier so that you can relax during OBON. All right, now the other thing that you need to know about is next week there will be a quiz. The quiz is 30 minutes. You only get 30 minutes to do it. The quiz is about the story message, the introduction, the body, including evidence and transitions and sequences, and the conclusion. It'll include all 4 parts, okay, all 4 things that we've studied in the story message. You have to do the quiz during WebEx next week. So everybody needs to log in for the last lesson. Okay, the last lesson is next Wednesday from 11 to 12. During that WebEx session, you will do the story message. Now, the reason for that is so that if anybody has any problems, I can help them. Okay? If you make a mistake and you submit your quiz too early, or if there's a problem with the quiz, which has happened, I can fix it. So that's why you are going to do it. All right? If I left it open, then there's every chance that you're going to have a problem, and then I'm not going to get an email about it until later, and then it's going to affect your final grade. So everybody will do the test at the same time during next week's WebEx session. All right. I will send out an email to let those people who haven't joined today's WebEx know that that is what's going to happen. All right. So there we go. That is what you need to do this week. Do the Schoology assessment, the conclusion. Make sure you read and have a look and do it in your textbook first. Make your conclusion, alter any slides that you need to alter, do a spell check, practice your presentation, and then record your presentation on Flipgrid. Okay, the deadline is next week, next Wednesday, but if you can finish early, then you can actually give feedback early. Let me just check one thing. Sorry, let me get rid of that. Okay. That's for a different class. I'm trying to show you what you need to do. Here we go. This is you, the final presentation. Okay, now there's no example of the final presentation, just instructions. All right, so you need to watch 5 of your classmates' presentations and give feedback by answering 2 questions. What did they do well? How can they improve? And remember, feedback is due by the 15th of August, by next Friday. All right, that's it. That's everything. I will stop sharing the screen now. If you have any questions, please ask. Give me a moment. There we go. Okay. Okay, if you have a question, but you want to ask later, or if you have a problem, okay? If you're doing your presentation and there's a problem with Flipgrid or there's something you need to ask me, send me a message through Schoology. Good question. Is there a sample of the final presentation? No, there isn't, because this is the first time that it has been done. Okay, this is a new presentation that I've put together. Now, I have actually got examples from students at another university, but it's not really going to help you because they did theirs live. Okay, theirs was in front of a class. You are going to be recording, doing a screen capture of your presentations. So I would like to have an example, but I don't. In fact, yours will be the examples for next year's students. So I will ask you first, but the best presentations that I see this semester or this quarter will be used next year for next year's students. So do a good job, okay? Basically, if you follow the same principles for the visual presentation that you did for the 2 cities, okay, then that's the visual part done. Okay, that's also the fluency part done. Now, I made a lot of comments and I sent everybody links to explain what they had done well and how they can improve. And you also gave each other a lot of really good feedback. What I suggest you do is you take that feedback, the things that you were doing well visually for your 2 country presentations, keep doing them. Okay, keep doing them for this presentation and they will be fine. Where you received feedbacks, advice on how to improve your presentations, then listen to that advice and try to improve your presentation this time in those areas. As far as the structure of your presentation, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, if you have been following the instructions each week, then that should be fine. And the other thing is just with the Flipgrid, okay, if you have a look at Flipgrid, it actually tells you how you will be assessed. Okay, you can see what the assessment criteria are. But essentially, it'll look at the introduction. Okay, it'll look at whether you did a greeting, whether you did the what, the why, okay, why the audience should listen to you, and the overview. It'll also look at whether you use transitions between the introduction and the body and the main points in the body. It'll look at whether you used evidence to support your main ideas. Okay, did you use numbers? Did you use examples? And in the conclusion, it'll look at, did you re-summarize your main ideas? And did you explain the important points? Okay, now if you've done all that, you're going to be fine. So I'm sorry, I wish I could give you an example, but this particular year I can't. You guys are going to be the example. Okay, good question, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, if you have a question later, like I said, send me a text and I will reply to it as quickly as I can. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining today's session. Okay, good luck making your presentations. If you have any help, just send me an email. Okay, take care, and I'll see all of you next week for the final lesson. All right, I'll stop recording now.